Every single morning, before the sun has even cleared the horizon, 2 billion people across the globe perform the exact same ritual. It is a chemical dependency so normalized that we don't even think of it as a drug. We call it starting the day. We call it grabbing a cup of joe. But what if I told you that the dark liquid in your hand is the silent architect of the modern world? This isn't just a beverage. It's a substance that fueled the Enlightenment, sparked the American Revolution, and built the very foundations of the global financial system. But there is a hidden cost to your caffeine fix, a story of smuggling, colonial blood, and a modern supply chain that is far more fragile than you've been led to believe. You probably never knew that your morning latte is the product of a history so volatile it once brought empires to their knees. To understand how we got here, we have to go back long before the green sirens of Starbucks or the artisanal roasters of Brooklyn. Our story begins in the 9th century, in the kingdom of Kaffa, in what is now modern-day Ethiopia. Legend tells us of a young goat herd named Kaldi. One afternoon, Kaldi noticed his flock acting strange. They weren't just grazing. They were leaping, frolicking, and dancing with an energy he had never seen. He traced their excitement back to a specific shrub, a plant with waxy leaves and bright red berries. Curious, Kaldi tried the fruit himself. Within minutes, he was dancing right alongside his goats, his mind racing with a newfound clarity. When Kaldi brought these berries to a local monastery, the monks were horrified. They declared them a temptation and tossed the berries into a fire. But as the seeds inside the fruit began to roast, an intoxicating, earthy aroma filled the room. The monks, captivated by the scent, raked the glowing beans from the embers, crushed them, and dissolved them in hot water. They found that this black broth allowed them to stay awake for hours of midnight prayer and divine meditation. They called it a gift from the heavens. By the 15th century, coffee had crossed the Red Sea into Yemen. This is where the plant was first truly cultivated and transformed into the drink we recognize today. The port city of Mocha became the world's first coffee capital. But this wasn't just a drink for monks anymore. It became a cultural phenomenon. In the bustling streets of Istanbul and Cairo, the kahve kane, or coffee house, was born. These weren't just shops, they were schools of the wise. For the price of a single cup, anyone from poets to politicians could sit and discuss philosophy, news, and dissent. This was a radical shift. Before coffee, the primary social lubricant was alcohol. People were essentially tipsy or hungover from dawn till dusk. Coffee did the opposite. It sharpened the mind. It cleared the mental fog of the Middle Ages. The Ottoman Empire guarded their coffee, gold, with lethal intensity. It was illegal to export a fertile coffee bean. Every bean that left the port of Mocha had to be boiled or parched to ensure it couldn't be planted elsewhere. They had a global monopoly, and they intended to keep it. But as the saying goes, where there is a high-demand commodity, there is a smuggler with a plan. In 1670, a Sufi pilgrim named Baba Budan managed to smuggle 7 fertile seeds out of Yemen, hidden against his chest as he traveled to India. Those 7 seeds would eventually break the Ottoman monopoly and pave the way for coffee's conquest of Europe. When coffee hit Europe, it triggered a revolution of the mind. In London, coffee houses became the penny universities. For a penny, you could enter and listen to the greatest thinkers of the age. Did you know that Lloyd's of London, the world's most famous insurance market, started as a coffee house? Or that the London Stock Exchange and the Royal Society, where Isaac Newton debated gravity, all found their footing over steaming bowls of coffee? We've come a long way from Kaldi's dancing goats. Today, coffee is the second most traded legal commodity on earth, trailing only behind oil. But to get that bean from a remote hillside in the bean belt to your local cafe requires a feat of human cooperation and logistical complexity that is almost hard to wrap your head around. Think about the scale for a moment. There are over 25 million smallholder farmers across the globe who are responsible for 80% of the world's coffee. That is 125 million people whose very survival depends on this one plant. The journey is grueling. A coffee tree takes nearly 4 years to produce its first harvest. And even then, Each cherry must be picked by hand at the exact moment of ripeness. It takes nearly 2,000 cherries, each containing 2 seeds, to produce just 1 pound of roasted coffee. Once harvested, the green beans are shipped across oceans in massive containers, subjected to the whims of the global market. In New York and London, traders bet on the C price, the commodity price of coffee, which fluctuates based on weather in Brazil or political unrest in Ethiopia. Then comes the roasting. This is where science meets art. At around 385 degrees Fahrenheit, the first crack happens. The bean literally doubles in size as the water inside turns to steam and the sugars begin to caramelize. This is the moment the 800 different aromatic compounds, the flavors of chocolate, citrus, and earth, are unlocked. It is a miracle of modern globalization, a chain of hands stretching across continents, involving farmers, pickers, millers, exporters, roasters, and baristas. When it works, it is a symphony of human effort. But this system wasn't built on fair handshakes and mutual respect. To understand the true price of your cup, we have to look at the shadows, because the history of coffee isn't just about enlightenment, it's also about exploitation. To understand the scale of what we're talking about, we have to look at the coffee reality. Every single day, the world consumes over 2.25 billion cups of coffee. It is the second most traded commodity on Earth, trailing only crude oil. But unlike oil, which is pumped by machines, every single bean in your morning brew was likely touched by human hands. Behind your espresso is a massive, invisible web of human cooperation. It begins on a steep hillside in the coffee belt, where a smallholder farmer, one of 25 million worldwide, hand picks the cherries when they are exactly the right shade of crimson. If they pick them too early, the coffee is sour, too late, and it's fermented. This isn't automated, it's an art form performed under a grueling sun. From the farm, the beans travel to a processing mill. They are washed, fermented to remove the sticky mucilage, and dried until they reach a precise 11% moisture content. They are now green coffee, stable, hard as rocks, and ready for the global stage. They are bagged in 60-kilogram jute sacks and hauled to ports, where they enter the sea market. This is where the magic of the market meets the reality of the earth. Your coffee is now a financial instrument, traded by speculators who may never have tasted a cup in their lives. It travels across oceans in refrigerated containers, arriving at massive roasting facilities where the Maillard reaction finally turns those green seeds into the aromatic brown beans you recognize. It is a triumph of logistics, a miracle of global harmony. But if we pull back the curtain just a little further, we see that this miracle has a shadow, one that stretches back centuries and continues to haunt the present. You see, coffee didn't become a global powerhouse because people just happened to like the taste. It was driven by empire. In the 18th and 19th centuries, coffee was a colonial crop, built entirely on the backs of enslaved people. In Brazil, the world's largest producer, slavery wasn't abolished until 1888, largely because the coffee aristocracy fought to keep their free labor. We like to think those days are over, but the dark side of coffee has simply evolved. Today, we face a price crisis. While you might pay $5 or $6 for a latte at a high-end cafe, the farmer who grew those beans is often living in extreme poverty. In many regions, the C price, the global commodity price, falls below the actual cost of production. This means farmers are literally losing money for every bag they harvest. This leads to a devastating ripple effect. Child labor becomes a necessity to keep the farm afloat, and young people flee the countryside for urban slums because they see no future in the soil. Then, there is the environmental cost. Historically, coffee was shade-grown under a canopy of diverse trees. It was a haven for migratory birds and biodiversity. But to meet our massive global demand, the industry shifted to sun-grown monocultures. This requires massive amounts of chemical fertilizers and pesticides. It takes roughly 140 liters of water to produce just 1 cup of coffee when you factor in irrigation and processing. As climate change warms the planet, coffee rust, a devastating fungal disease, is spreading to higher altitudes, wiping out entire harvests. By 2050, Researchers estimate that 50% of the land currently suitable for coffee will be unusable. This sounds like a tragedy in the making, but it doesn't have to be. The story of coffee is still being written, and for the first time in history, the consumer you has the power to change the ending. We are seeing the rise of the third wave of coffee, a movement that treats coffee like fine wine. This isn't just about snobbery, it's about direct trade. When roasters bypass the massive commodity markets and buy directly from farmers, they can pay 5 or 10 times the market rate. This allows farmers to invest in regenerative agriculture, planting shade trees, protecting water sources, and paying their workers a living wage. You probably never knew that your morning routine was an act of global politics, but it is. By looking for certifications like fair trade or, better yet, buying from local roasters who can tell you exactly which farm your beans came from, you are voting for a world where the person who grew your coffee can afford to buy a cup of it themselves. Coffee is more than just caffeine. It is a bridge between the global north and the global south. It is a drink that fueled the Enlightenment, sparked revolutions, and continues to connect us in a way few other things can. The untold history of coffee is a story of struggle, but its future can be a story of equity. So, the next time you take that first sip, remember the journey. Remember the hands that picked it, the miles it traveled, and the power you hold in that simple ceramic cup. If you found this journey eye-opening, hit that subscribe button and join our community. We're uncovering the hidden truths behind the world's most everyday objects. Tell us in the comments, does knowing the true price of coffee change how you'll buy your next bag? Thanks for watching. Drink responsibly.